Back, Earth Lab at the University of Washington is a cutting-edge institute that's part research, part community catalyst, connecting UW science expertise with public, private, and nonprofit sectors, all trying to solve environmental problems. Sally Jewell chairs Earth Lab's Advisory Council, and joining us now is Ben Packard, Executive Director of Earth Lab. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is so cool, and you guys are on top of actually trying to create solutions. Tell me about your work.
Yeah, so Earth Lab is a new institute at the university that's seeking to connect the amazing research with decision makers who can actually do something about these massive environmental challenges that we're facing.
I like that idea because we're a bit pillared, aren't we? I mean, we have the academic expertise, we have people who are decision makers, we have business people, we have consumers, but you are trying to connect all of those groups.
Right, and you know, as we know, addressing environmental challenges takes everybody involved. From my past experience at Starbucks and with the Nature Conservancy, I could see how none of us solve these issues by ourselves. So bringing the academics and bringing the science is really important for us to connect that to how decision makers make policy.
So how does the lab work? Do students come in and sign up for this, or how do they connect?
Well, we connect in a number of ways. We work with faculty and community members who are seeking to address environmental challenges. Typically, the faculty do bring their students along and engage them in this process, but it's really about providing decision makers with actionable information that they can use in real-world decisions, not just writing academic papers, but getting them applied and getting them used in the world.
So can you give me an example?
Yeah, we've got a lot of great things going on. Most recently, we just announced winners of our first ever innovation grants, and these are teams of faculty that have real-world questions that they're researching. One is, there's a group working with the Department of Ecology and the food truck industry to help develop cleaner green chemicals for what they do to clean the trucks. There's another group, this is really cool, working with the University of Washington Virtual Reality Lab, where they're helping communities see in advance of decisions that they're making about sea level rise and how that's going to affect their communities. There's another group that has been awarded a grant to work with the Washington Department of Health to help understand how a changing climate might be affecting how West Nile and other viruses are affecting different communities. So real-world decisions that community members, be they nonprofits or businesses or public agencies, are making on an everyday basis.
As a communicator, I see great stories in there that help people understand some of these, somewhat esoteric things. People who might not be at the top of Rainier or go to some of the places you've been, but can understand something once it's brought into their own sphere. That's a wonderful thing. You mentioned in the commercial break that you have all of these stories from this, varied career that you have that help people understand why each of us need to be invested, so that somebody, as you mentioned, a communicator, a reporter, might wonder, okay, well, what does this have to do with me? And you have ways to help us understand that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, let me use a real-life example from Earth Lab that has been part of the work of the Washington Ocean Acidification Center, which is part of Earth Lab. The shellfish company, Taylor Shellfish, came to the University of Washington and said, we're struggling to reproduce the oysters and the clams in the water that we're getting, out of the sound or the ocean. Can you help us understand what's going on? And what was going on was ocean acidification that's driven by climate change. So the university teamed up with Taylor Shellfish to help them understand how to adjust the acidity of the water in their hatcheries, and then where and when to put those seeded oysters or clams out into the bays where they're being produced. And this is something we can all relate to. I mean, we're proud of our shellfish industry. It's part of the identity of the Northwest, going back to the tribes and the kitchen middens that we see in so many areas, and yet that's all threatened today by climate change. And that's exactly something that Earth Lab and its researchers have been working on for some time. So
and can
that's a
work on
real-life
for the
example.
future.
Right.
You have a couple of programs I wanted to talk about, some projects you're both excited about. Nature for Health. What is this?
This is a fantastic initiative where a group of researchers in public health in our School of Environment and Forest Sciences are coming together with practitioners to essentially close the gap in understanding about how exposure to nature is beneficial to our health. I've got 3 boys, and I knew right away when they were younger that exposure to nature, and many of us have had this experience where we have that exposure to nature and we feel better because of it. This group has come together to help make this a mainstream idea, and you can imagine if we understood exposure to nature to be a core element of human health, we might make decisions differently about who has access to nature, how they have access to nature, and this research will be applied by people making decisions about building new parks, about creating public spaces, and about creating access, which is really an equity issue at its core.
It is.
Yeah.
And students who are coming to you now are going to be the leaders and decision makers in the future, so having that as part of their education, I think, is fundamentally different than what we've done up till now.
That's right. And also just understanding how that exposure could benefit mental health and other issues that we're seeing, you know, in great levels in today's society.
You know, I think as a policymaker, one of the things that's important to recognize is that there's never going to be enough money to go around for everything that a policymaker is faced with, whether that's a city council member in a local community. Where does nature fit on that continuum? And if we have information that really helps quantify that, it will help decision makers continue to have nature and parks and open spaces as part of their budgets.
As a priority, because there's data to support it.
Exactly.
I'm so glad you're back. It's great to have you back, and I'd love to come out and see the Earth Lab at some point. Thank you both so much for being here. To find out more about the projects that Earth Lab is working on, as well as the organization it's partnering with, all of the organizations, please check out the links on our website. We've got tons of info for you there.